Marcus Williams walked into the bright lobby of Horizon Bank with a calm confidence. He was wearing his navy suit and carrying a leather briefcase. To anyone else, he looked like a regular customer coming for a meeting. But Marcus was not just any customer. He was the CEO of a successful technology company, known for his smart decisions and bold ideas. Today, he needed to discuss some financial matters with the bank manager. He had appointments like this every month, and normally, they went smoothly. As he approached the front desk, a young teller smiled politely. Marcus greeted her with a nod. "Good morning," he said. "I have a meeting with Mr. Roberts at 10. The teller glanced at her screen and then looked at him again. "I'm sorry, sir, but we cannot assist you today," she said with a tone that sounded polite but final. Marcus paused, confused. "Excuse me? I have an appointment with your manager. I need to discuss some business accounts." "I understand," she said, "but we cannot serve you today. You will need to reschedule." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had never experienced anything like this at this bank. He was careful with his appearance, his reputation, and his behavior. He treated everyone with respect, and he expected the same in return. "May I ask why?" he said calmly, but there was a firmness in his voice. The teller shifted uncomfortably. "I cannot explain. It is the bank's policy," she said. Marcus took a deep breath. He had faced challenges before, but being refused service without reason felt personal. He looked around the lobby. Other customers were being served without trouble. Some looked at him curiously, sensing the tension. He felt a mix of anger and disbelief, but he refused to lose control. "Please call your manager," he said firmly. "I am here for my appointment, and I will wait." The teller hesitated but finally picked up the phone. After a few minutes of quiet conversation, she returned with an apologetic smile. "Mr. Roberts says he cannot see you today either." "I'm sorry, sir." Marcus's hands tightened around his briefcase. He realized that this was not about a policy. This was about him. He was being judged unfairly, refused service because of his appearance. He had heard stories like this from friends and colleagues, but he never expected it to happen to him personally. He left the bank quietly, not wanting to cause a scene. Outside, the cool morning air felt sharp on his face. Marcus walked to his car, thinking about the injustice. He had worked hard for everything he had. His company had grown from a small startup into a major corporation. He had built a team of talented people and created opportunities for others. And yet, here he was, refused service at a place that should have welcomed him as a client. As he drove back to his office, Marcus's mind raced. Anger mixed with determination. He could complain, he could leave it behind, but neither option felt right. Something inside him sparked. He would not let this go. He would find a way to make a change, not just for himself, but for others who might face the same treatment. By the time he reached his office, Marcus had made a decision. This incident would not define him. Instead, it would fuel him. He would turn this unfair moment into an opportunity. He sat at his desk, opened his laptop, and began researching the bank. He wanted to understand it from the inside out. He would learn everything about its structure, its management, and its finances. Marcus did not yet know exactly how he would act, but he knew one thing. He would not leave that bank the same way. Something had to change, and he was determined to be the one to make it happen. The day had started like any other, but by mid-morning, Marcus's ordinary routine had turned into the beginning of a journey that would test his skills, his patience, and his courage. The refusal at Horizon Bank was not the end. It was the spark of a new challenge, and Marcus was ready to face it. Marcus sat alone in his office, the city skyline glowing through the large windows behind him. The morning sunlight reflected off the glass walls, but he barely noticed it. His mind was still replaying the incident at Horizon Bank. Being refused service felt like a punch he had not expected. But instead of breaking him, it lit a fire inside. He leaned back in his chair and thought about his life. He had started his company with nothing but an idea and a strong will. He had faced many challenges along the way, from investors who doubted him to competitors who tried to copy his work. Every time, he had found a way forward. And yet, today, something simple walking into a bank had reminded him that no amount of success could protect him from the prejudice that still existed in the world. Marcus rubbed his hands over his face. He could have called the bank, written a complaint, or even ignored the incident. Many people would have done that. But Marcus was not many people. He had always believed that challenges were opportunities in disguise. If something blocked his path, it was a sign that he needed to find another way, a smarter way. He opened his laptop and began to write notes. First, he listed everything he knew about Horizon Bank, its branches, its services, its top managers, and its reputation. Then, he wrote down ideas for how someone could influence the bank from the inside. He was not thinking about revenge. Marcus wanted fairness. He wanted a place where no customer would ever feel small or unwelcome. As he wrote, he smiled to himself. He realized that this could be bigger than just solving his own problem. If he could make the bank a model for respect and equality, it could inspire other businesses to follow. He imagined a place where every customer was treated with dignity, where success was measured not only in profits, but also in how people were valued. Marcus's assistant, Layla, knocked gently on the door. "Marcus, are you okay?" "You have been in your office for hours," she said. "I am fine," Marcus replied, closing his notebook. "I am just thinking, Layla. I had an experience today that made me see things differently." Layla raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" Marcus told her briefly about the refusal at the bank. He kept his voice calm but firm. He wanted her to understand the seriousness of the situation. Layla listened carefully. "That is terrible," she said softly. "You have done so much for your company and your community, and yet someone treated you like that?" "Yes," Marcus said, "but I am not going to let it stop me. I want to make sure no one else feels the same way. I want to find a way to change the system from the inside." Layla nodded, inspired by his words. "Then we need a plan. How do you want to start?" Marcus leaned forward and smiled. "First, we need information. Every detail about the bank, its structure, and its decision-makers. We will study it carefully. Knowledge will give us power." Layla started taking notes, and Marcus began outlining the steps. He wanted to be thorough. He knew this would not be easy. There would be challenges, people who doubted him, and obstacles at every turn. But Marcus felt ready. Every setback in his life had prepared him for moments like this. As the afternoon sunlight shifted across the office, Marcus felt a sense of purpose growing stronger in him. He thought about his employees, his family, and all the people in the city who might face unfair treatment at banks or other institutions. He realized that his actions could have a ripple effect. What started as a personal injustice could become a movement for fairness and respect. By the time evening came, Marcus had a clear direction. He would research, plan, and then act. He would not rush, but he would not hesitate. Every step would be calculated and thoughtful. Marcus knew that patience, persistence, and intelligence were his greatest tools. Sitting back in his chair, he looked out at the city lights beginning to sparkle. The world was full of opportunities, and he was determined to turn one difficult morning into a powerful change. Today had been unfair, but tomorrow held promise. Marcus smiled, feeling both calm and energized. His journey was just beginning, and he was ready for whatever came next. Marcus spent the next few days diving into research. His office became a small command center, papers stacked neatly on one side of the desk, and his laptop open to spreadsheets and company reports. He wanted to understand everything about Horizon Bank, from its financial health to the people running it. He was not just looking for numbers. He was looking for opportunities. He started with the basics. Marcus studied the bank's annual reports, noting its profits, losses, and investments. He learned about its different branches, how decisions were made, and who controlled the major shares. Every piece of information added to the picture in his mind. He began to see patterns, weaknesses, and areas where a smart move could make a big difference. Layla watched him work with admiration. "Marcus, you are going into this carefully," she said one morning. "You are not acting out of anger. You are thinking strategically." Marcus nodded. "Exactly. I want to change things, but I need to do it in a way that actually works. If I act too fast or without understanding, I could fail and lose the chance to make a real difference." He contacted a few financial advisors he trusted. Together, they discussed different approaches. Buying the bank outright was ambitious, but it was possible. Smaller investments, forming alliances with other shareholders, or influencing policies through negotiation were other options. Marcus listened to every idea, weighing the risks and benefits. One afternoon, he leaned back in his chair and looked at the city skyline. He imagined walking into Horizon Bank again, not as a refused customer, but as someone who had the power to change the rules. The thought gave him energy. He could see the bank becoming a place where fairness was a priority, where customers and employees were respected equally. He could see himself leading that change. Marcus also considered the challenges. Some people would doubt him, thinking he was taking on more than he could handle. Others might try to block his plans. But he had faced challenges before. Every time he had been underestimated, he had turned it into an advantage. He reminded himself that persistence and careful planning were stronger than anger or impatience. He began to meet with his trusted team more frequently. Layla, along with 2 financial analysts, helped him calculate potential costs, profits, and strategies for negotiations. They created a timeline, identifying which steps needed to happen first. Marcus wanted to ensure that every move was calculated and effective. By the end of the week, Marcus had a preliminary plan. First, gather detailed financial information about the bank. Second, approach shareholders with a vision that promised growth and fairness. Third, prepare for negotiations with the board of directors. Every step was designed to build influence gradually. Marcus also spent time thinking about the message he wanted to send. This was not just about one refusal at a bank. It was about creating change that would reach beyond himself. He wanted Horizon Bank to be a model for others, showing that leadership, fairness, and respect could go hand in hand with success. Late one evening, as Marcus looked over the documents on his desk, he felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. This plan could take months, even years, to fully succeed. But he was ready. He had the knowledge, the team, and the determination to see it through. He closed his laptop and stood by the window. The city lights twinkled below, and he imagined the future. Horizon Bank could be more than just a financial institution. It could be a place where people were treated with dignity, where leaders set an example, and where fairness guided every decision. Marcus felt a quiet pride. He had turned a moment of injustice into a mission. And now, with careful planning and steady determination, he was ready to take the first steps. This was not a small challenge, but Marcus had never backed down from big challenges. He would move forward, step by step, until the change he imagined became reality. Marcus called his team together early on Monday morning. The office was quiet, the sun just rising over the city skyline. Papers, charts, and reports lay on the conference table. Layla and the 2 financial analysts, Daniel and Nina, gathered around. Marcus had spent days preparing, but now it was time to discuss the challenges ahead. Before we move forward, we need to talk about the obstacles, Marcus said, his voice calm but serious. This will not be easy. People will doubt us. Some will resist our ideas. And we may face setbacks we cannot control. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Marcus, are you sure we can really do this? Buying a bank is a huge task. Even with the money, there are risks. What if the board refuses? Marcus looked at him with steady eyes. I know it will be difficult, but everything worth achieving is difficult. We will not rush. We will plan every step carefully. Doubts are natural, but they cannot stop us from trying. Nina spoke next. We also have to consider investors. Some may be hesitant to join our plan. They might see it as too risky. Convincing them will take patience and strong arguments. Marcus nodded. Exactly. This is why we must be prepared. We need clear facts, strong reasoning, and a vision that inspires confidence. People support ideas they believe in. Our job is to show them that this is not only possible but necessary. Over the next few days, Marcus faced small but persistent challenges. Some investors were skeptical. They questioned whether he should put his resources into a bank when his company was already successful. Others worried about public perception. They did not understand why a personal experience should lead to such a major business move. Despite the doubts, Marcus remained focused. He met with each investor personally, explaining his vision. He emphasized fairness, respect, and long-term growth. He showed them detailed plans and financial projections. Slowly, some of the investors began to see his point. They admired his determination and the careful thought behind every step. Even within his team, there were moments of tension. Daniel worried about possible mistakes, and Nina sometimes questioned whether the board would listen. Marcus never dismissed their concerns. Instead, he used them to refine the plan. Every worry became a question he could answer. Every doubt became a challenge to overcome. One afternoon, Marcus received a phone call from one of the major shareholders of Horizon Bank. They were polite but firm. Mr. Williams, we have heard your ideas, but we are not sure this is the right time, the shareholder said. The board has its own plans. You will face many obstacles if you continue. Marcus listened carefully. He did not react with anger. He thanked the shareholder and promised to stay in touch. After hanging up, he turned to Leila. This is exactly why we need patience. Obstacles will come, but they are not the end. They are part of the process. Every no brings us closer to the right yes, Leila smiled. You always see challenges as opportunities, Marcus. That is the only way to succeed, he replied. We cannot control what others say or do, but we can control how prepared we are. Every step we take builds strength. Every setback teaches us something. By the end of the week, Marcus had faced rejection, skepticism, and doubt, but he also had gained insight. He understood the concerns of the investors and shareholders better. He knew which arguments were convincing and which needed more work. The obstacles had tested him, but they had also sharpened his focused thought as the office lights dimmed and the city began to glow outside. Marcus reflected on the week. He realized that facing obstacles was a natural part of any journey toward meaningful change. What mattered was not avoiding difficulties, but learning to navigate them. He felt a quiet confidence. Marcus knew the path ahead would not be easy, but he was ready. Each obstacle was a lesson. Each challenge an opportunity to prove his vision was worth pursuing. With patience, planning, and persistence, he would move forward. Nothing could stop him from working toward a bank where fairness and respect were not optional, but a rule. The day of the proposal arrived, and Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and focus. He had prepared for weeks, reviewing every detail, anticipating every question the board might ask. His team had helped him polish the presentation, making sure it was clear, logical, and persuasive. Marcus knew that this was the moment to turn his vision into action. He entered the boardroom of Horizon Bank with quiet confidence. The walls were lined with polished wood, and sunlight reflected off the large glass table. Around it sat the bank's directors and major shareholders, dressed in formal suits. Their expressions were polite but cautious. Marcus greeted each person with a nod. "Good morning," he said calmly. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I am here to present an opportunity that can benefit both the bank and its customers." The chairman, a tall man with gray hair, leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Williams, we are listening. Please proceed." Marcus began with a clear explanation of his vision. He spoke about fairness, respect, and long-term growth. He described how the bank could become a model institution where every customer was valued and treated with dignity. He showed charts, financial projections, and examples of successful leadership strategies. Some directors exchanged glances. Marcus noticed, but he stayed focused. He knew that confidence and clarity were a key. "This is not just about numbers," he continued. "It is about creating a culture of respect and trust. A bank that leads in fairness will attract loyal customers, talented employees, and positive attention in the market." Questions came quickly. One director asked about risks. Another questioned the financial feasibility. Marcus answered each calmly, using facts, projections, and examples. He did not hesitate or become defensive. Instead, he turned every question into an opportunity to explain his plan further. At one point, a shareholder spoke sharply. "Why should we accept this? Your reason is personal. How does that benefit us?" Marcus looked directly at him. "I understand your concern. My experience is personal, but the solution is universal. Treating customers fairly is good business. It strengthens reputation, increases loyalty, and ensures long-term success. This plan is not about one incident. It is about creating a stronger, more respected bank." The room grew quiet for a moment. Marcus sensed a shift. Some directors began to nod slightly, considering his words. He could see that his preparation and calm approach were making an impact. He continued, explaining the steps of the proposal. He described how he could gradually acquire shares, build influence, and implement policies that ensured fairness without disrupting the bank's operations. Every detail was clear. Every possibility accounted for. By the end of the presentation, Marcus had shown his vision, answered questions, and demonstrated careful planning. He took a deep breath. "This is an opportunity to make a difference while also strengthening the bank. I am committed, prepared, and ready to work with you to make this successful." The room remained silent for a few moments. The chairman finally spoke. "Mr. Williams, you have presented your plan thoughtfully. We will need time to review it and consult with the other shareholders. Your vision is clear, and your preparation is impressive." Marcus nodded. "I understand. I appreciate your time and consideration. I am ready to provide any additional information you need." As he left the boardroom, he felt a mix of relief and anticipation. The proposal was made, and now the outcome depended on careful review and discussion. Marcus knew he had done everything possible to present his vision clearly and persuasively. Outside, Layla waited with a supportive smile. "How did it go?" she asked. Marcus exhaled slowly. "It went as well as I can hope. Now we wait. The board will discuss, and we will see what happens next. We have planted the seed. Now it is up to them to allow it to grow." Layla nodded. "You were confident, clear, and prepared. That counts for a lot." Marcus smiled. "It does, but we must stay patient. Change takes time. This is just one step in the journey. The important thing is that we started. Everything else will follow if we remain focused and persistent." As they walked back to the office, Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction. The proposal was complete. He had faced a room full of skepticism and questions with clarity and calm. The next stage of the journey would be challenging, but he had proven to himself and others that he could stand firm under pressure. He looked at the city lights beginning to appear as evening approached. Marcus knew the path ahead would require patience and determination, but he also knew that the hardest part, making his vision clear to the decision-makers, was done. The seed had been planted, and soon it would grow. Days passed slowly as Marcus and his team waited for the board of Horizon Bank to respond to the proposal. Each morning, Marcus checked his messages, hoping for news. Layla and the analysts stayed by his side, sharing updates and reviewing any questions the board had sent. The anticipation was intense, but Marcus remained calm. He knew that patience was part of the process. Finally, the call came. Marcus answered, hearing the chairman's voice on the line. "Mr. Williams, after careful review and discussion with the shareholders, we have reached a decision regarding your proposal." Marcus held his breath, his heart steady. "I am listening," he said. "The board has agreed to move forward with your plan," the chairman continued. "We are impressed with your vision, preparation, and commitment. We believe that this can be a positive step for the bank and its customers." Marcus felt a rush of relief and satisfaction. A smile spread across his face. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I am committed to making this work and ensuring that the bank thrives in every way." Layla, who had been nearby, let out a quiet cheer. Daniel and Nina exchanged looks of joy. The months of research, planning, and careful preparation had paid off. Marcus felt proud, not just for himself, but for his team and for the opportunity to create meaningful change. The next days were filled with formalities. Legal documents were prepared, meetings were held with shareholders, and contracts were carefully reviewed. Marcus paid attention to every detail, ensuring that the transition would be smooth. He wanted to be ready not only to own the bank, but also to lead it responsibly and effectively. During one of the transition meetings, a senior manager at the bank spoke cautiously. "Mr. Williams, we understand your goals, but changing a bank's policies is complicated. Customers, employees, and shareholders all have expectations. How will you manage that?" Marcus smiled and replied confidently, "I will listen, learn, and act thoughtfully. I will respect the experience of your team while guiding the bank toward fairness and respect for every customer. Change must be gradual and carefully planned, but it must also be consistent and clear." The senior manager nodded. "I see. That makes sense. We look forward to working with you." Once the legal processes were complete, Marcus officially became the owner of Horizon Bank. The ceremony was simple, but the symbolism was powerful. As he signed the final documents, he felt a sense of accomplishment deeper than any success he had achieved in business. This was not just about ownership. It was about creating an institution where values mattered as much as profits. Lila, standing nearby, whispered, "You did it, Marcus. You really did it." Marcus nodded, feeling a mix of pride and responsibility. "Yes, but this is just the beginning. Ownership is not the goal. The goal is change. The goal is to ensure that everyone who walks into this bank feels valued and respected." He spent the following weeks meeting with managers, employees, and staff across the bank's branches. He listened to their experiences, learned about daily operations, and asked questions about what could be improved. He made it clear that fairness and respect would be the foundation of every policy and every decision. Marcus also reached out to community leaders and customers, explaining his vision. He wanted them to feel involved, to know that their voices mattered. Slowly, people began to see that Horizon Bank was changing. There was a sense of energy and optimism that had not existed before dawn at the end of the month. Marcus sat in his new office, looking out at the city skyline. He reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From being refused service to becoming the owner of the bank, the path had been challenging and full of uncertainty. But every obstacle had prepared him for this moment. Every careful step had led to a tangible outcome. Marcus felt a quiet pride. This achievement was not just personal. It was meaningful. He had turned an unfair experience into an opportunity for positive change. Horizon Bank was now his responsibility, and he was ready to lead it with integrity, fairness, and respect for everyone who entered its doors. He smiled, knowing that the journey was far from over, but that the foundation for transformation had been firmly laid. The bank would no longer be a place of prejudice or refusal. It would be a place of opportunity, trust, and equality. Marcus had taken control, and now he could make a real difference. Marcus Williams stood in the main lobby of Horizon Bank, watching as employees and customers moved through the space. Everything felt different now. He was no longer just a client. He was the owner, responsible for shaping the culture and direction of the entire institution. From the beginning, he had made it clear that fairness, respect, and trust would guide every decision he made. The first step Marcus took was meeting with all department heads. He wanted to understand how things were running and what challenges staff faced. In the conference room, he spoke with managers from finance, customer service, and operations. He asked questions carefully, listened attentively, and took notes on areas that needed improvement. Marcus: "Some customers have complained about long wait times and unclear communication," said one manager. "I understand," Marcus replied. "We need to make sure that every customer feels valued. That means faster service, clearer information, and a welcoming environment. Let's work together to make these changes practical and consistent." He also spoke directly with employees at various branches. He walked through teller counters, greeted staff by name, and asked about their experiences. Marcus wanted them to feel respected and included in the transformation. He emphasized that their ideas mattered and that improving the bank was a team effort. Layla joined him during these visits. "You have a natural way of connecting with people," she said as they left one branch. "They really listen to you." Marcus smiled. "I want them to feel heard. If employees feel valued, they will pass that respect to customers. It all begins with the team." Next, Marcus focused on customer communication. He launched a program to gather feedback from clients, asking about their experiences and what improvements they wanted. He made sure every suggestion was reviewed and acted upon. He also introduced a customer service training program, emphasizing kindness, professionalism, and equality. One morning, Marcus noticed a customer waiting at the counter. She looked nervous and unsure. Marcus approached with a warm smile. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" The woman looked up, surprised that the owner himself was speaking to her. I just need some assistance with my account," she said softly. Marcus guided her patiently, explaining each step and making sure she felt comfortable. By the time she left, she was smiling and thanked them for the help. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction. This small interaction was exactly what he wanted the bank to represent: service with dignity for everyone. He also began implementing new policies to ensure fairness in decision-making. Loan approvals, account services, and investment consultations were now evaluated with transparency. Any discrimination or unfair treatment was not tolerated. Marcus held meetings with managers to monitor progress and maintain accountability. Over the next few weeks, changes became visible. Customers noticed friendlier service, clearer communication, and shorter waiting times. Employees reported feeling motivated and appreciated. Even shareholders began to see positive results, with the bank attracting new clients and increasing its reputation in the community. Marcus felt a sense of accomplishment, but he remained focused. He knew transformation took time and consistency. He continued to meet with staff, review policies, and monitor customer feedback. Every day was an opportunity to reinforce the values he wanted the bank to uphold: One evening, as Marcus returned to his office, he looked out over the city. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the buildings. He reflected on how far the bank had come in a short time. What had started as a personal injustice had grown into a mission that touched many lives. Lila walked in quietly. "Marcus, the staff and customers are noticing the difference. They respect you and believe in your vision." Marcus nodded. "This is only the beginning, but it shows that positive change is possible when we act with purpose and fairness. A single decision can grow into something much larger if we are patient and committed." As he turned back to his desk, Marcus felt a deep sense of pride. Horizon Bank was no longer just a financial institution. It was becoming a place where respect, equality, and fairness guided every action. And Marcus, who had once been refused service, had transformed that experience into an opportunity to create lasting impact. Months had passed since Marcus Williams became the owner of Horizon Bank. The lobby, once ordinary, now buzzed with energy. Customers greeted staff warmly, and employees moved with purpose and pride. Marcus walked through the bank daily, noticing small changes that reflected the larger transformation. The culture of fairness and respect was taking hold, and the results were visible everywhere. One morning, Marcus sat in his office, looking out at the city skyline. He reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From being refused service to leading the bank, it had been a path full of challenges, learning, and growth. Every obstacle, every doubt, and every careful decision had prepared him for this moment. Layla knocked on the door and entered with a folder in her hand. "Marcus, I wanted to share some updates," she said. "Customer satisfaction is at an all-time high, and employee engagement scores are improving. People are noticing the changes you made." Marcus smiled. "Thank you, Layla, but this is a team effort. Every employee who embraced the vision, every manager who applied the new policies, and every customer who gave honest feedback has helped us reach this point." Layla nodded. "You turned a difficult experience into something that affects so many lives positively." "That is rare." Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking. He remembered the morning he'd been refused service. At the time, it had felt like a small personal injustice. But that moment had sparked a larger mission. It had pushed him to act, to use his knowledge, resources, and determination to create real change. He thought about the employees who now felt valued, the customers who were treated with respect, and the community that was beginning to see Horizon Bank as a model institution. Marcus realized that one incident, when approached with courage and thoughtfulness, could grow into a movement for fairness. He stood and walked to the window, looking at the city stretching below. Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey had been long and required patience, but it had been worth every step. He had turned personal frustration into a positive outcome for thousands of people. Later that day, Marcus visited one of the branches that had struggled the most in the past. The staff greeted him warmly, and a small crowd of customers thanked him for improving their experiences. Marcus spoke with them, asking questions, listening, and assuring them that their voices mattered. He saw smiles, relief, and trust in their eyes. These small moments reminded him why he had pursued this mission so passionately. In the evening, Marcus returned to his office. He sat quietly, reflecting on the lessons he had learned. Patience, persistence, careful planning, and fairness had guided him. He had discovered that leadership was not just about making decisions, but about creating an environment where people felt valued, heard, and respected. He also thought about the wider impact of his journey. Other businesses in the city were starting to take note. People were talking about Horizon Bank, not only as a successful institution, but as one that valued integrity and fairness. Marcus realized that his actions had inspired others to consider how they treated people in their own organizations. Layla entered once more. "Marcus, The board wanted me to tell you that they fully support your policies. They are impressed with the results and how you have led the bank through this transformation." Marcus nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction. "This is not about approval," he said. "It is about change. The real success is in the way people are treated every day, not in recognition or praise." That evening, as the city lights glimmered outside, Marcus felt a sense of peace. He had taken an unfair experience and transformed it into something meaningful. Horizon Bank was no longer just a place of financial transactions. It was a place of fairness, respect, and opportunity. He had created a legacy, one that would continue to inspire employees, customers, and the community for years to come. Marcus leaned back in his chair, thinking of the journey from refusal to transformation. The memory of that day still reminded him that change often begins in small moments. What seemed like a setback had become a stepping stone to something much greater. He smiled, knowing that one person's determination, guided by fairness and integrity, could create lasting impact. Marcus was proud, not only of the success he had achieved, but of the positive difference he had made in the lives of so many. Horizon Bank had changed, and so had he, leaving a story of courage, vision, and leadership for others to follow.